Welcome to the Top 200 podcast with your host, Herschel Fraun.
Thanks, Georgie Boy, for the intro. What's up, everybody? This is Herschel Fraun from High School Top 200, and welcome back to the Monday Morning Meeting podcast. Here for first 15 news from all over the country. Here for all the information that you need to keep up to what these young stars are doing today. I'm here for you just for some different perspective. Remember, all of this is just my opinion, just like everything else. You have your own opinions. These are all my opinions of first 15 rugby, but mine is a bit different because I watch so much of this stuff and I love this level of rugby. I love this level of talent, and I come with a lot of experience at this level. And I come with a lot of enthusiasm for the stars that we have and for these young men that put in so much effort. I just love studying this side of things. And for those that are new, my name is Herschel Fraun. I run High School Top 200. I am the only one that runs High School Top 200, the only one that does all this work. And all I do is try to give to you, the audience, the best possible information that I can so that you can make up your mind about what's going on in this first 15 scene here in New Zealand. And so it's there's been a lot happening, I think, in terms of with the games that have been played, right? Because there's been about 4 games. Everyone's played about 4 or 5 games since the start of the season, and that's including like competition games as well as like those that have played in traditionals. So everyone's played kind of around that mark of 4 or 5 games, but I think we're kind of starting to see where everyone's gonna land. I think we're also kind of starting to see where I guess everybody is at in terms of their own competition, because there's been some like separation of teams within their own tables. I think there's some separation as well for I guess in the rankings of the top 25, starting to figure out who is who and where they sit. Because I think after about 4 or 5 games, and then you start to see everyone sort of win and lose at the same time, week after week, you kind of get a gist of I guess who's ready for this level and where everything separates. Like, for example, like if you take North Harbour right now is really one team, and that's Westlake Boys. And then those other teams are actually quite bunched together, and then there's Manurewa High School, which is so weird, and I still don't understand what's going on with those fellas. But to have such a gap for what's happening with Manurewa, to have such a gap from what happened, whatever, the last 3 or 4 years at that school, to come to this big massive drop that they have now, it's pretty strange. But having a team like Westlake Boys in the competition by themselves, you already kind of know what's happening with them, how their competition is going, seeing where everybody else is at. You kind of get the gist that Westlake Boys is on their own level, especially within their competition. They're just on their own level. For the 1A, I still think Sacred Heart also is on their own level. Even them winning 15-0, was it 15-0? I think it was 15-0 on Saturday against a really good team like St. Peter's. I think it actually kind of tells how good that team actually is. The most interesting one is probably the CNI, which has, I guess, 6 contending teams, and it's so hard to sort of separate all of them and separate how good those teams are, because Whanganui right now is at the top of that competition. I think the other one that you have to kind of look at is St. Paul's. You have to look at St. John's. You have to look at St. Peter's and Wesley as well. And then like trying to figure out when it comes down to the end, you know, who's going to be at the top, because even with Fielding losing this week to St. Peter's down, you know, at home, like that was a big shock to me. That was a big shock to me that they lost, and they lost at home. And then the separation point side of this, when it comes from Whanganui Collegiate to St. Paul's Collegiate to St. John's, Hamilton to Fielding, Wesley, and St. Peter's. And Whanganui Collegiate is at 15, and then St. Peter's School is at 6. And I have a feeling that all of these guys are going to lose maybe at least 2 games each this year. I don't think, I mean, their St. Peter's and Wesley College draw also comes into it too. Francis Douglas is not a team that I would separate from that bunch either. I actually think Francis Douglas is a pretty good team, and I actually think that they have a really good standard of the way that they play the game. And so I can see all of these teams having at least 2 losses each, and then having to fight for those last top 4. The top 4 right now of Whanganui Collegiate, St. Paul's Collegiate, St. John's, Hamilton, and Fielding, at the beginning of the year is exactly the top 4 that I thought it would be, but just not in that order. And then after seeing how good Wesley was, and after seeing how good St. Peter's actually was as well, I'm actually starting to think like maybe there's going to be a big shift in this tournament, and then everyone's going to have to fight for that 4th place. And I kind of think that no one is going to be safe within that top 4. I think the scoring system, the point system in this competition is going to be a week-to-week thing. And I don't know if like you're going to have like a string of easy teams which separate you. Because I'm guessing like in this competition you would probably want a run of Lindisfarne, Rathkirl, and St. John's Hastings all in a row, and just to sort of get that separation and rest, but knowing at the same time that these other guys are going to have that strength. But I think you'd just rather hope that they would all be those 3 would be one after the other, maybe to I guess get that confidence boost straight away, and to see your name at the top of that list, rather than have one game hard, one game easy, one game hard, one game easy, like things like that. But like that's like another competition that I think is going to be right down to the wire, right down to the end, and there's going to be at least six teams all chasing for those 4 spots, maybe 7 at the end of this. The Wellington Comp. Wellington competition is the other one that I was thinking about too, because now that Rongotai have lost, St. Pat's Town have lost, and Hibs and Wairarapa have actually shown how good they actually are. And Hibs getting 2 wins in a row from, beating a CNI team in Rathkill, and then beating also, who was the other team that they beat? I can't even remember. Let me look. Oh, Rongotai. I just said it. Oh my gosh, must be tired. But getting the win over Rathkill and Rongotai, then Wairarapa being St. Pat's Town. And the list right now, the placing in the competition right now is Scott, Silverstream, Hibs, St. Bernard's, Rongotai, Wellington, Wairarapa, St. Pat's Town, and then Tawa and Mana. I actually think that this is going to be a case where I feel like Wairarapa and Hibs could probably end up in their top 4. And even though Scots College and Silverstream are going to be the 2 top teams in that comp, and they'll probably most likely make the finals, having 2 teams like Hibs, Wairarapa, or even having St. Bernard's if they hang on long enough, pushing out teams like Rongotai, Wellington College and St. Pat's, I think is like a pretty big game changer for that region that is struggling. And like we've talked about this before, of how much Wellington region struggles and how much they struggle in terms of everyone thinks about the tradition of how strong Wellington rugby has been in the past, but now we have to kind of look at it differently because we don't have that same Wellington region, I wouldn't say pride, but they're not at the top level and schools are not scared to play them. Silverstream to me has been the most consistent through all the grades over this last 10 years, and then I would say Scots College has been the second one next to that. Then St. Pat's Town and Wellington College have had some off and on years. Rongotai have kind of been the outsider of that top 4, and then Wairarapa has been always that sort of that dark horse at the same time. But Hibs, I feel like it's kind of like a sneaky good team, and I think that they're only just going to get better. And you've kind of seen it over the years with the type of players that they've brought out. And I think that if they were to set up a proper rugby program at Hibs, I think it can lift the region as a whole. Because I feel like the region as a whole has a problem. And this is where I still agree with the fact that I think that they probably need 2 combined teams in the Wellington competition. I think a Porirua team as a whole is probably a really good option, and that's only so that all the better teams, all the better players within those regions can all come together as one and then make it a competitive game against, the bigger teams in the region. But I also think that if PC can keep their players, Mana can keep their players, Bishop Via, Tawa, Taita College, and then they were given really good coaches who are actual coaches and given really good rugby players, and to teach just the same thing that you're teaching these other bigger rugby schools. I think that they already have the players at their schools. I just don't think that they have the coaching staffs to match it. What Tawa is doing really right now is really good, where they're starting to build up this younger team and bringing them all together, and then sort of connecting it with the under 15s to teach them about what they're going to get into when they move up to first 15, and keeping it a squad situation rather than a separate first 15, second 15, under 15s, or whatever your situation is at your school. I always think that if you want to start building a rugby program with who you have at your school, I've always looked at it in a way as that if you don't have a lot of numbers at your school, I would combine a training of everybody of under 15s, under 16s, first and seconds, all on like a Monday or Tuesday, just to go through skills, just to go through positional skills things, and then having like a Tuesday and a Thursday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, or whatever, and then a walkthrough on a Friday. But just to get everyone together so that you have the senior ones teaching the younger ones, and they can sort of mimic and start working on these little techniques within their position on the Monday. It's not going to be like this hard out thing. It's just to work on your position stuff. And I think that's like a really good program to be built up in a small school that wants to do better, and just having the older guys with the younger guys, and then they're all working together on that Monday. I think what Tawa College is doing is really good, and I think Whited Up has been doing something like that for a while. Hibs has probably started that. St. Bernard's is another school that I think have a lot of good talent, but a bit underrated with, Josh and Regan, Troy, those guys that are there at St. Bernard's. Deacon's another one, but all those boys there also have to look at the younger boys below them and say, like, come train with me, let's go work out, let's go for runs, let's so that those guys can set a standard for what it means to be in the first 15. I think that's where a lot of that comes from too, is that, like, if you're not proud of your first 15 players, and the younger boys are not in awe, or sort of, they don't look up to or not in awe of their first 15 players, sometimes I think that's just that's kind of the problem. I mean, when I was at the game of Hamilton, one of the ball boys who just looked like this little year 9 kid, he was just running the ball onto the field, and then he was running past Kalis after he scored a try, dapped him up, and then the boy started smiling when he had walked past, but Kalis didn't need to say hi to him. Kalis Putoko didn't need to say hi to him, to this little kid from Hamilton Boys, but when he did, and he dapped him up, and then the kid was sort of running back, and the kid didn't know I was looking at him, but then I could see him smile, like he was like, oh, like he acknowledged me and he noticed me. I think a lot of first 15 boys have got to do stuff like that to those younger rugby players as well, and make them feel like they're part of it, because you really are part of it. Your first 15 team is one thing, but your first 15 team is also full of leaders and full of guys that have been looked up to, even though if you don't know it. These little boys look up to you a lot, and you are something to them, and you are somewhat of a local icon within the school, boundaries, because of who you are and what you play for. And then building all that kind of stuff too is really important when you want to start building a rugby program. And I think that's one of those ways that you really want to, set that pride within the school. And just looking at that Wellington, list and the Wellington standings, with these guys who are like coming up, like Hibs and Whited Upper and Tawa Mana, who have made it into this premiership, they've got to start doing that and lifting these other boys so that you can consistently be in the premiership and not go too much up and down all the time. Keep that consistency of being in there. Even if you're losing games, it doesn't matter, as long as you're on the top and you start preaching to those younger boys that are with you that this is where we belong. We belong in this competition. We don't want to go back to second division or whatever it is. But Wellington competition is one of those that is really interesting to look at because of the new teams that are going to be showing up. Because Wellington's always been dominated so much by Wellington College, St. Pat's Town, Silverstream, and lately, within these years, Scots College, seeing these new teams come up is going to be cool. maybe the Hurricanes tournament next year is going to look a bit different. If whoever those top 4 teams are end up playing the Super 8 4 teams as well, we'll probably get a different tournament. I would get a different festival, not tournament, but festival. The other competition, like the Mars Toyota competition as well, Nelson College with their young team, they're leading the board down there. Then it's Nelson, Christ College, Christchurch Boys, St. Thomas, St. Andrews, Shirley, Selwyn, Marlborough, and St. Bede's, and then it's Timaru. Even though it's early on, Nelson, I feel like, have more consistency in the way that they play. I think Nelson's got maybe they're carrying more of that confidence with them because of how they've been, pretty much these last 5 years, how good that team is. I think that they're starting to be automatic leaders in this competition. And the way that they've been developing their players too, obviously that stuff goes towards Jono and the way that he's built this program that they have running there at Nelson College. And I really admire the work that he's put into these players and into the teams that he's put together, and the way that he's just developing all these local kids and how good these local kids actually become just through what he does. And so it's not surprising. Like I looked at Nelson as one of the top teams in the Miles Toyota Cup for this year. I didn't think that they would. I knew that I picked them for finishing top 4. I didn't think they would be leading the comp this early. I mean, it's 3 games in. It's only 3 games, but I saw them as being a young, dominated team, and they would kind of work their way into it. But getting these 3, these wins straight away, not surprising, but it's just cool to see, I guess. Christ College is another one that's up there that I thought might struggle a little bit, but are looking really good. Christchurch Boys was my top pick, and I mean, like, it's still early days. They have their massive game against Christ College coming up this week. I think on Wednesday, and then Nelson and Marlborough have their big local bash. And I hope these two games are live streamed. I mean, for me, I wish that every game was live streamed, but I think Christ College and Christchurch Boys is probably one of the biggest rivalry games in the country. Nelson and Marlborough should be one as well. Like Silverstream and St. Pat's Town, I think, is another big rival as well that I always thought that is a lot bigger than the other ones around the country. But I hope those 2 games are played this weekend live stream. St. Thomas is probably a bit of a mix with the new leaders that they have in that team, with Jason and Tino, like guys like that, Noah. Zeke has also started playing pretty well. I kind of don't know what to make of St. Thomas either. Like, and maybe I've got to kind of get used to the fact that, those boys from last year are not there anymore. They've got their own new leadership. They've got their own boys and this different not going to say style, because I don't think they've really changed their style, but they've got other guys that they can rely on. I think St. Thomas is going to be, I don't know. I think they're kind of a tricky one, because I like the way that they play. I like what they do. Maybe Maritino is probably the other one that I think is going to be I actually think that he's New Zealand secondary school standard in terms of the way he can finish moves off on the wing, and he's so physical and explosive as a winger that I think in the right system, when there's plays that are and movements that are created just for him, I think he can fully dominate in a game. And even though I've already picked, early on picks, and these always change as well anyway, I've already picked Seal and Kalis as my two leading wingers, I would be surprised if Maritino as well is going to be added to that list. I mean, that backline for St. Thomas is really good anyway, because they have Ashton Clark who's back. They also, like I said, have Noah, Jackson Stewart's the other one in that midfield. Tino Jackson Bunting is their captain at prop. I think Zeke is like a New Zealand secondary school type prop coming next year, because obviously he's only year 12 this year, so next year I think he'll be in the lead for New Zealand secondary schools for next year, and I think he's that quality player if he stays healthy and fit, and his scrummaging is really good, and his offensive game is real powerful, and he showed some of that last year as year 11 too, and so I see him as one of those guys. But I think it must just be me and the way that I think about him, because the guys that they had last year were such big figures within that team, and the growth of that team, that I kind of still look at them as the heart and soul of that team. And maybe if I see more games of St. Thomas, I'll probably see I would have a different view of them. I'd probably need to see more about them, but I'm not surprised. I'm not totally surprised, because I knew that they had a good team. I just didn't kind of know how it was going to work, but it looks like, with them sitting in 4th place right now, still early on, as I said, but it'll be good. It'll be good to see what it's like, after over the next 5 weeks, and see what happens and see what it looks like then. Super 8 has just started, so there's not really that much happening in the Super 8, because all the teams. I went to the Hamilton game Thursday, and I wrote, I think it's funny, because people thought that I was saying that New Plymouth was going to win. I just said that they had a chance. I also wrote that if they didn't do this really quickly within the start of that game, that score could blow out. And it exactly blew out, because I've been to some New Plymouth games where they were just so far from it, and it was exactly what happened on Thursday, is that New Plymouth need to start strong every single game. Oh no, not every single game. Against Hamilton boys, New Plymouth have to start strong. They have to score points first, and they have to be in the lead first, and then play with desperation to hold that lead and to build on top of that. If Hamilton boys score first and then score again pretty much after that, to me, New Plymouth boys is a team against Hamilton that turn off, and then they've already been beaten psychologically. And it's not, and I'm not saying this is a mean way, I'm just saying it's that's what's happened in the games that I have seen of New Plymouth boys and Hamilton boys, is that's how it turns out. because Hamilton is such a they're a team that can psych you out based on their reputation and their tradition of winning, like their modern day tradition. And I'm talking modern day stuff because this is all since 2003 or 4 when they really started like pushing who they were, and they really started showing up and started having boys make New Zealand secondary schools and winning sevens titles and winning touch titles and stuff like that. And now we're in this year of 2024 and everybody knows who they are. And so you could easily be intimidated even before stepping on the field by the team that you're going to play, because we know what to expect from Hamilton boys. Auckland Grammar are going to feel that same way come, Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday when they play again, or when they play them in their annual traditional game, because I feel like they're going to look at it and go, we were beaten by New Plymouth boys. New Plymouth boys just played Hamilton boys and they got 64-14 against them. We lost to New Plymouth boys. What is our score going to be? Now you could easily look at it that way, and Auckland Grammar could probably lose a lot of mind games by thinking like that. Now I know all these boys are not going to admit if they think like that or not, but if it ends up popping in their head, it's going to be a pretty long day for Auckland Grammar if a lot of those boys are thinking like that. And especially for what this traditional game is, I don't think Auckland Grammar want to lose that way. Not to Hamilton boys. But I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of how it goes with schoolboy rugby. You just kind of look at things like that. And I mean, like, Auckland Grammar right now, in that Auckland competition, because it's so, obviously you've got Sacred Heart and St. Kitts. You got those two teams at the top, and I don't know why. I don't see. I don't see Sacred Heart losing this year. I don't actually see them losing a game this year. And I think if they were going to lose a game, to me, St. Kennigan's is going to be the game that they would lose. Because I think St. Kennigan's match up really well with them. And I think St. Kennigan's, I guess, can match the aura of what Sacred Heart is and how they're feeling right now. I feel like they match up player to player pretty good too. I think that Sacred Heart is a better team. And in pre-season, when they played, there was 2 points in it or 4 points in it, something like that. And so I think if they meet again, if Sacred Heart was to lose a game, I think that would be the game that they would lose. And I mean, there are some blessings in terms of losing a game throughout the season, just to, I don't know, calm some nerves down a bit. But I mean, like, it's not necessary that you have to lose. Sometimes it's just a blessing in disguise of how it can actually help a team, get that off their back kind of thing. But if this team can ride through it without a loss on their name, like, I think it'd be pretty cool. Sacred Heart, obviously, I think everyone knows how long they haven't won an Auckland title for, and it's so surprising for a school like that to not have won a title in so long. But that's just the reality of who they are. I'm still picking them to win that title this year. I think that they can do it. I think they got the team to do it. I think it's the right time for that school as well. They got a great coaching staff. They got a great captain and co-captain, and their senior boys that they have in that team are really good leaders, and I actually admire the way that they've been able to grow as a team together. And then also, I think that their hardest team that they're going to play is going to be Westlake Boys, and that will be their main game to win. And that's not going to be an easy game either. But I feel like Sacred Heart are going to win the 1A title this year. And I don't think they're going to lose a game, but like I said, if there was a game that they're going to lose, St. Kennigan's is going to be the game that they'll probably lose at. I'm not even saying that they're going to have like blowout wins. I actually think they're going to have maybe 6 really close games this year. I think there's going to be teams that sort of take them right to the end of games. I mean, like, even if you watch their game against St. Peter's, wasn't even an easy game. Even though it was 15-0, it didn't look like a 15-0 kind of game. That's what, from what I saw of it, that just didn't look that way. And that was their first hard game that they had this season, was that. I mean, like, look at Kelston Boys, of how good that Kelston Boys game is. I know that they got humbled against Liston College, a team just down the road, and it's not something that's, I'm not sure if it's not ever happened, and it hasn't happened in so many years, but at the same time, they bounced back, and it just happened to be Mags that took the brunt of that, I guess, that anger that Kelston Boys had, that they just came back, just fired up, really fired up, and put some points on Mags. And Mags was like really good too. Like, Mags were 3-0. I think Mags should have been pretty annoyed at Liston College for beating them the week before, because I think they're like, if that just went to script as usual of Kelston beating Liston, I actually think Mags and Kelston would have been a closer game. I still think Kelston would have won, but I think it would have been a closer game, wouldn't have been that much of a blowout. But the way that ended, with a scoreline of 45-3 at Mags, Liston College to me has a lot to do with that. So if you look at Sacred, St. Kent's, Kelston Boys, St. Peter's, those are your top 4. Then you've got Mags, Auckland Grammar, De La Salle, Liston, Kings, Dilworth, Tangaroa, and St. Paul's. Kings just beat Dilworth. Dilworth, Tangaroa, and St. Paul's still without a win. Liston have 2 wins, which is really good for Liston. But I know that Liston's actually been building a team, because I know that they had a lot of young players, not last year before, I think it was, where they had something like 6-year 11s in their team, and they're all starting to come up now. And if they keep building a program, especially out west with the players that they have out there, hopefully they can be a consistent team within that 1A. But yeah, that 1A is going to be tough. Tangaroa, Dilworth, and St. Paul's are fighting at the bottom. St. Paul's just have to go through this for their first year, and then remain confident that they'll stay in it next year as well. But I still think that they're going to have their time. I think they're going to have their games where they can really learn from some close games that they'll have in the 1A. But they'll spend maybe a couple of years down at the bottom of that 1A. But as long as they stay in the 1A, I think they're winning. That's kind of the way that I see it when it comes to St. Paul's. That Pool A and the 1B of Auckland, that's got Tamaki at the top, which is Tamaki is such a good team right now. Aotearoa, who's coming second, and that's Pool A. This is just Pool A. I think Pool B have got the better teams. But in Pool A, it's got Tamaki, Aotearoa, Pakuranga, Southern Cross, Avondale, Otahu, and One Tree Hill. But then the Pool B with Howick, Botany, Maclean's, and Onehunga. To me, those four teams that's such a hard competition to have those four teams. Because that's going to be one of those situations where, Howick's won all four of their games. Botany are 3-1, Maclean's is 3-1, and Onehunga is 2-1. And they've got a draw as well, which I think they'll probably be pretty gutted at that draw, because I think they had a draw with the Sir Edmund Hillary Collegiate. I think that was where their draw came from. And so they're probably going to be pretty annoyed at that game and wish they had that one back, so they could also be 3-1, because it's 19, 15, 14, and 11 are the top four scores, point scores in that Pool B. But yeah, I wish. I don't know how they're going to do this, because I haven't actually read, or it's not clear on how they're going to put the pools together. Maybe if they take the top four and then take the top four of both pools and put them together, and they have like another round or something. I'm not sure, but that 1B competition is actually really, really good, really solid.
Oh, Wesley!
As well. The other competitions going around, I think those are the main ones. Those are just the main ones, but obviously all the Waikato ones, the Bay of Plenty, Manawatu ones, ones like that. Obviously down south of Otago, leading their one, them, Southland and Kings all at the top. But there were some big games as well that happened, especially down south. The fact that, and they've got to be kicking themselves, I know that they are, but South Otago High School losing to Tyree College 10-7, I know that South Otago is pretty good, because South Otago is a strong team. South Otago have some players. South Otago's also got really, really good structure in their team. They've been together at it for a while. I don't know how. I mean, I haven't seen the game. I'm trying to get a copy of the game so I can have a watch. But, for me, I think Kyrus Booth, who's the year 10 first five, having him, Regan McDonald, Toby Harricks for sure at open side. And Toby Harricks is not a player I talk about a lot. I know who he is. I've seen him play over the last 2 years that he's been in the first 15. I knew him as a year 11. He's kind of one of those players that I wish went to a bigger school because of how talented he is. And I hope that he makes that Highlanders team, and I actually think that he's probably the best open side that they have in the Highlanders this year. But I think for someone like him, even with Wyatt Shanks, even with Regan McDonald as their loose trio, I think that this is going to be one of those turning points for that team, and that they're going to need that loss to springboard them for the rest of the season and not take any games for granted. And I kind of think, and I don't know for sure, but I'm just thinking that they took this game for granted and it really backfired on them. Because I actually think that even with the team, did say that they were penalized a lot, they had yellow cards and whatever, that is a good enough team that I think that they can overcome all of those kind of difficulties when you go play at someone else's home ground. And I think that's going to be a game they're going to really regret this year, and it's going to be not one of the ones that they look at. And I still think that they're going to end up in the top four. I still think that they're a good enough team to be playing with Otago boys and John McGlashan and them. I still think that they're a top, higher quality side. But that's just not what you wanted to see, I mean, I was so surprised when I saw it. I was thinking, oh man, maybe they got the scores around the wrong way. But yeah, it's just one of those things. But also down there, Wakatupu beating Waitaki boys was a big deal as well. And especially with their 40 points to 24, that kind of scoreline is really good for Wakatupu. Kind of annoying in terms of Waitaki boys, because I know that I know they've got really, really good players. I know that they've got a big-sized forward pack. They're all pretty mobile. I think they've probably got one of the better number 8s, in the competition. I guess if you looked at Phoenix is probably, no, I'm not saying probably, no, he is. Phoenix is probably the best number 8 that they have down there, in the Otago region. But Sione Pu'ua is a number 8 for them, and he's like a really beast of a runner, really hard to put down, and he should have been like one of those guys that just sort of ran through a lot of those Wakatupu guys. I mean, Sione and Tamati as well. All those guys are big, heavy runners, big, heavy forward. They've got a big, heavy forward pack. Lockie has been there for, Mava has been there since he was year 11. So it's not like they don't have players, but to end the game 40 to 24, that's kind of confusing. I haven't even seen the game. It's another game that I'm trying to get a hold of, but it's just different. It's different. But anyways, other scores around the country. Obviously, we went through Oh, Mana and Taita College, that was the girls' one. Starting from Friday, because we're starting from Tuesday. Hibs beating Rafkil 27-12. Whangarei went up to Kerikeri and won 27-17. And then we had the Hamilton boys game against New Plymouth, 64-14. Christ played on Friday against Timaru boys and won 41-3. Surprising how big that scoreline was. Shouldn't be that big. Then Sacred beat St. Peter's. Westlake beat Rosmini. St. Peter's School Cambridge having that big upset over Fielding High School, which would definitely change the rankings. 32-24 to St. Kennigan's over Auckland Grammar, which will push them up. Scots College had to have the games ended early because of an injury to one of the Wellington College players. So they ended the game early, and they had like I think they had 2 yellow cards and a red card. They were playing with 12 guys at the time. This is Scots College. And they were still up 31-0, which is really concerning to me about what Wellington College is doing. And whatever their thing is, I hope they fix it up. And it's not one of those things that are just going to fix it up over 1 or 2 years. It's going to be a constant process that they have to go through. But that just wasn't a good sign. 31-0 down, and they had to end it early. And been playing against sort of 12 men at one point. Silverstream beating Tawa 71-7, which sounds really bad, but Tawa's new to this, so I give them a lot of props in the way that they held themselves. I mean, I was told that they held themselves for the first 20-25 minutes at 14-7, so to me that's a win, for a team like that. Rotorua boys going down to Napier boys was a big surprise. Even watching the game wasn't exactly what I expected from Rotorua boys, but I think I know where their problems are coming from, and no doubt that the coaching staff would see the same thing as well. And I'm hoping to see like a lot of that change within the next 2 or 3 games that come up, and they have to do that, or else it's not going to be good for them, especially in the Super 8. If you can't figure things out fast, your team ends up at the bottom of that table. Christchurch boys winning 29-8 over Stack. St. John's Hamilton 55 over Lindisfarne 3. Otago boys winning 54-3 over John McGlashan. Whanganui Collegiate 62-5 over St. John's Hastings. Southland boys had a massive score against Kings High School, 60-0. That was massively surprising. That's a big score. Along with Kelston winning 45-3 over Mags. Wesley losing to St. Paul's Collegiate 12-16. Palmy put up a massive score on Gisborne boys who had a fight back. St. Bees lost to St. Thomas 20-22. Francis Douglas with a massive score of 62-14 over Rafkil. Rafkil would have been tired too from that Hibs game too, so they probably didn't help either. Massey, Takapuna and Whangarei all getting wins in that North Harbour competition over Rangitoto, Orewa and Manirewa. De La Salle beating St. Paul's Collegiate. Kings beating Dilworth and Liston beating Tangaroa College. Aureri winning over One Tree Hill. Otahu losing to Pakuranga 49-5, which was a massive surprise. I didn't think that was going to happen. Tamaki winning 10-8. Avondale fought hard back. I thought that was a really good game too. Botany Downs beating Maclean's 38-3. Maclean's need to fix that up. It shouldn't be that much of a distance between those two teams, and it's just one of those games where you have a bad game. Howick winning 53-12 over Edmund Hillary Collegiate. Ongehanga winning, beating Waitakere College. Mount Roskill beating Mangere College 2. In the counties region though, Tuakau College winning 51-5 is massive, and I like it. And I like that scoreline because Tuakau even last year had this really young team, and they sort of and it seems like they've kind of worked it out. I hope Tuakau get some big games throughout this year to sort of test themselves as well, because I think they've done well with building up the team that they have right now. Waiuku beating Rosehill College 31-0 was like another one I didn't really expect. I thought that game was actually going to be a closer game. Hauraki Plains winning 27-22 over Pukekohe High School second 15. In Hamilton, the Waikato Comp, Pukekohe beat Matamata College. Cambridge lost to St. John's second 15. Morrinsville had a big win over St. Peter's second 15. Tikawiti High School just beat Hamilton Boys senior gold team 27-22. Putaruru College beat Te Awamutu College 12-7. Putaruru actually looked pretty good this year, so I'm pretty happy that those country kids are getting back up there, because they always have like so much talent in some of those schools that we just don't get to see. Rototuna High School 38-31 over Tokoroa. Fraser losing to Hamilton Boys Senior Red. Forest View getting a 41-7 over Matamata College second 15, and Otorohanga winning 53-5 over St. John's third 15. In the Bay, plenty Taupo beating Whakatania was a big game. Also, Trident beating Western Heights was a good one too. Te Taumata then something happened with them, and Mount Maunganui College won by default. Papamoa lost to Rotorua Boys third 15, and Te Puke won over Katikati College 53-5. And Ultimotai went down to Tauranga Boys Senior Blue team also on Saturday. But those are all the big games from around the country, or the ones that we follow in the top 200 and the rankings. St. Brendan's getting their 44-0 over Mana College. Wairarapa beating St. Pat's Town 20-19, and Rongotai losing to Hibs 7-8. Puriroa College also beat Newlands College 61-19, which was actually a really good sign for Puriroa College. Nainai beating Aotea College 17-12, and Paraparaumu College beating St. Pat's Town second 15. Bishop Viard went down to Hutt Valley High School 37-17. And in the Miles Toyota Premiership, Shirley Boys beat Selwyn combined 33-24, which was a surprise to me. I actually picked Selwyn for that. And Aoraki combined, they lost to St. Bede's second 15. Waimea combined lost to St. Thomas second 15. Horomaka combined lost to Mid Canterbury combined 65-0. Kashmir combined lost to Christ College combined second 15 59-7, and then Rangiora lost to Christchurch Boys second 15 29-19. Dunstan lost to Otago Boys second 15. Mount Aspiring lost to St. Kevin's College 45-21. Like I said, Tyree College beat South Otago, and Wakatupu beat Waitaki Boys. Big week in the rankings. We're going to have to switch it all up. Getting closer and closer to what I think is going to be, I guess, the set top 25, which I kind of know around the beginning of June. Mid of June, I kind of know the teams that are going to be in that top 25 that kind of look like, those are the set ones. But there's been a lot of good games, and I've been really surprised at how much closer all of these these games are and how much these competitions are starting to even out year by year, and it's been really, really good. But that's all I got for you today. Herschel from High School Top 200. Love you all. Later, Bolt.